Okay, Baruch Hashem, it feels good. Every time you just begin learning Tanya, it's like an excitement. So, speaking about Chokhmah and Binah, I think our tree was cut down, and we're explaining the anatomy of the soul, that Chokhmah is that experience when there's an illumination that fills you, and you grasp something. The example that we keep going back to is when you're learning something, you don't understand it, and then all of a sudden what happens? A life goes on. If you have a regular Tanya, I want you to go to Igeres HaKodesh. You know, the Tanya is made up of 5 books. So in Chabad they say, just like there's Chamisha Chumshei Torah, there's 5 books of Tanya. So a regular Tanya, it has all 5 books in it. And at the end of Igeres HaKodesh, the first book is called Tanya. It's really called Tanya Sefer Shel Beinanim. The second book is called Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, which is all about the oneness of God. And then is Igeres HaTshuva, where he writes all about Tshuva. Then there's something called Igeres HaKodesh, Holy Letters, where essentially he was writing letters to the community. And then there's Kuntres Achrein, which is a deeper Kabalistic understanding of section of the Zohar. The fourth of these books, which is really a compilation of letters, is called Igeres HaKodesh, these holy letters. And you can see that the letters are divided. 1, 2, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. I want you to go to letter 15. At the end of letter 15, in the Tanya, if you look, it's probably page 247. It won't be in that version, but the regular version, like Sheikh has and Dani has. So it'll be in there. At the end of Igeres HaKodesh, this 15th letter, he's talking about different parts of the soul. He mentions the highest part called Das Elyon, which is basically connection. And then it says like this: Makor HaSeichel, Hamasig Oimek Umusug. This thing called Das Elyon, which is another word for Keter, is when you grasp, it's a place that you can connect to, you can lock yourself into, where you can grasp this thing called Chokhmah. And what is this thing called Chokhmah? It's Kenekuda, it's this point, the Kebarak HaMavrik Al Sichloi. And it's like a lightning bolt that goes off in your brain. Chokhmah, this place that's drawing from Keter, Das Elyon, which is the experience when you get this lightning bolt that goes off in your brain. Like, wow, I got something and it's clear to me. It's a part of your soul which is very open and intuitive, and it's almost childlike. I don't mean childlike like haha, but I mean like a child is inquisitive and open to the unknown. Chokhmah has this very playful quality of being open and humble to the beyondness of everything. That's Chokhmah. So when you can open yourself up to that, the lightning bolt, the flash comes in and you get something. Binah is the process of unwinding the entire experience and allowing it to be more brilliant in its expression. A mashal that's given of Chokhmah is like when you get something, you're chasing somebody, but you haven't reached them yet. You see them. Binah is when you actually grab them. You're massive. You got it. Binah is when the idea has been fully fleshed out and you see it in all of its brilliance. Chokhmah, it's still like hovering above it. You got it. You know you got it. You're in my sight, buddy. I'm getting you. The idea was, it's there. You're learning to tell you, I got it. Your said, so tell me. I can't. So you didn't get it. I know that I could see it in sight. Binah is that process of, okay, now 1 second, wait a second, and the whole thing expands out. So what's more mature, Chokhmah or Binah? Binah is more mature because Binah is unwinding of the whole idea and all of its brilliance. Chokhmah, can you have Binah without Chokhmah? No, you need what to develop, what to pull apart. There's no Binah without Chokhmah. You could have Chokhmah without Binah.
It's a waste.
Yeah. Chokhmah without Binah is just, you hit a flash and you don't do anything with it. That's like a guy that, sadly, this is more of a guy thing, is you ask the guy, like, so what are you doing with your life? Like, I'm running for president, I'm going to become a CEO of this big business, I'm going to do it. And you say, did you ever do anything with it? No, I never did anything, but I could do everything. He's got grandiose plans, but he never actually develops any one idea. That's called Chokhmah with no Binah. Chokhmah's got great ideas. Chokhmah's amazing, big, but it's not developed. It's still immature in many ways. Binah is called Hasaga, when you actually really grasp it. And like we said, do men and women think differently? The answer is yes, even though of course there's going to be exceptions, but the male qualities, and this is going to really take us much longer to explain, but the male qualities is more on the side of Chokhmah, of that blast of the idea, and the female quality is the one that wants to develop the entire thing in all of its majesty and all of its brilliance, and all the details that go along with it. For example, a classic thing that will happen in my family is I'll tell my wife, I've got a great idea. Let's go to Tzfat for Shabbos. Is that Chokhmah or Binah? Oh, is it Tzfat, the whole thing, right? It's all there. So she's like, great! How are we going to get there? Where are we staying? Diapers, newborn. Where we sleep? Like, what are we doing for our sudas? Strollers, expenses. I'm like, Tzfat! What do you mean Tzfat? We're going to Tzfat! Let's go! We'll work it out! She's like, no. Flow charts, diagrams, where are we going, what are we doing, details. So who's more mature? My wife, because she sees it in all of its brilliance. That doesn't mean that I don't mean her or me, I mean that quality of Chokhmah and that quality of Binah. The Chokhmah is the flash, the brilliance, which feeds energy into the system. And the Binah is now, let's take that and let's actually make that into a practical plan. For example, you have a great idea, build this house. The house, that concept is Chokhmah. The Binah now, blueprints, details, the mathematics, the schematics. Is it going to work in this soil? Is it too loamy? Is it going to work? Is this actually going to be sustainable? And it starts developing the idea. Once the Binah has been developed in its fullness, you see everything in its brilliance. The Chokhmah gives all the energy, but it lacks the detail. Okay? Now, the Tanya is now going to take us to the next step, where he says, if you can use your Chokhmah and your Binah properly, it will be the source of all emotion. That's what we were talking about earlier today. Is that one of the main things that people struggle with is that their emotions are far from their beliefs. That the emotions just pull us. They don't necessarily follow along with a logical system of living with our values. Living with values, we want to then flow into our emotions. For example, if I know that I'm making a good decision and the woman that I want to marry, let's say. So you hope that you go through the proper logical system and then you become excited about that person. And then 10 years into marriage, you're still excited. You're more excited about that person. You make a good decision with a business deal, you get excited about it. We're going to talk about what about God? What about becoming excited about God? So, in this format, if you actually meditate and use your Chokhmah and your Binah on certain concepts, you will become emotionally enthralled with God. This is the way of Chabad, is to use intellect to generate emotion. Because emotion that doesn't come from intellect will pull you anywhere. For example, a guy goes to the bar and meets the girl and they hit it off. So generally, was that based on an intellectual decision or just an emotional decision? Emotional, and they were vulnerable and this happened. Do you think it's like a recipe for a great, successful relationship? I think we can all understand that that's not a great way to start things. He's probably on the rebound, she's on the rebound, they're both vulnerable, and then let's hook up at that point. It's gonna be great. And then each exes are calling the next day, like, that's bad. So the whole thing was just emotional pull into something, not a healthy decision. And by the way, most people make, on a day-to-day basis, almost 100% emotional decisions. Even though they think that they're making intellectual decisions. All of marketing is based on making emotional decisions. You see the Coca-Cola go by, and it beads of sweat dripping down. You're like, I'm so thirsty for a Coke. I have no idea why. Come on, you were drawn after that. They got you. Nothing intellectual went into that. You didn't actually think, do I actually need a Coca-Cola right now? Is that actually going to be a good decision for me? Is it going to spike my blood sugar? Just Coke. And obviously you got to buy that car because there was a woman sitting on the trunk of the car in the picture of buying the car, and somehow you think that buying the car is going to lead you to somehow get that woman. But when you find the car, like, where's that woman that I saw in the advertisement? I don't see her. And the guy drops 60 grand on a car because in his head, marketing works for a reason. Marketing, because they know that we have an animal soul and our animal soul runs on emotions. But the true Torah human being is not swayed by his emotions just because there's a bottle with beads of sweat. Now, by the way, you know these food photographers? You know how much money goes into engineering what it looks like? I had a friend of mine in Englewood, that they paid him money to use his house, McDonald's, to do one of their shoots. They said they took the pickle, it was for one of the Big Mac things, they were gluing things on. They were gluing on the sesame seeds. He said, because he was a young guy, he remembers watching the whole thing. It was so artificial, the sauce coming off and the studies and the research and the R&D of what and the geometrical distancing that it makes the exact image that will make your tivas go nuts, that you just have to buy that thing. It's all, so the Torah human being doesn't get swayed by his emotions in that way. Who says I need to have a Big Mac? But because the sesame seeds and because the commercial said that I should do this? But it's amazing, they all work. A guy sees a thing for a new chocolate bar. By the end of the week, he probably tried it. Something went up, some poster of doing the Magnum ice cream thing. That's already become the thing. Like, did you try the new flavor? You tried it? Because it works. But who says you need to do that? Is there any intellect going into that decision? No. So, what are we doing now? We're describing that most of our emotions are just not coming from a godly soul perspective. Godly soul emotions are generated after intellectual thinking. Animal soul emotions are just generated starting from the emotions. Like the guy on the rebound, drink the Coke, whatever feels good. And now they don't even lie to you anymore. They're just like, if it feels good, do it. Just do whatever you feel like. And they make it, now it's like, if you feel like it, you have to do it. This is all the legitimacy of all the things that letting people do basically anything nowadays. Because if you feel that you have to do this, then you have a right to do this. Maybe not. Maybe there's something that needs to be examined here. But the world of the animal soul that thrives on emotions, in that world anything goes. Because if you feel like doing it, then you should do it. Not only should you must do it. It's your right to. And we say, wait a second, we operate with the intellect first. We make calculated decisions using Chokhmah and Binah. Flash comes in, we examine it, we see it in all of its detail, and then to the degree that you could do that properly, it will arouse emotions. So that's when it comes to in our day-to-day life. Now the Baal Tanya is going to explain. He's only going to introduce this idea of real Jewish meditation. And he's going to explain that all of Jewish meditation revolves around the following three ideas. Everything. All Jewish meditation, Torah meditation, mystical Torah meditation revolves around the following three concepts. We're going to have to go into it more next time, but I'm going to introduce it. And what the Tanya means is that if you can think about these concepts in a deep way, you will naturally generate emotion. Which is, by the way that healthy emotion is generated. When you think about how much you love your wife and all the good things she does for you, you think about how much you love your husband and all the wonderful things that he does for you, and you think about that in a real concentrated way, you will generate love for that person. You'll feel for that person. It will make a feeling of, I want to give to that person. I want to be so much more closer to you. To the degree that you understand something, you will have a natural emotional response to it. So let's now apply that to God. To the degree that we can understand God intellectually. Now, first of all, why is the intellect also the best way to zone in with God? Because the intellect can understand abstract things. And is there anything more abstract than God? He's the example of abstract because he's infinite. So the mind has the greatest capacity to see and picture things. God is there's no picture here. There's nothing that's idol worship. But that we could envision and we could think about abstract concepts. So these following ideas, when you think about these ideas, first of all, they're the most ennobling ideas to think about. And if you think about them properly, the great tzaddikim spent their whole life thinking about these three ideas. It's the basis of all the meditations. That all the most advanced Kabalistic meditations are based on these following three. Now let's begin them. So we explained that Chokhmah and Binah is like an Av and an Aim. Hamoiloidus Av is Hashem v'yirasai v'pachtoi. When you can think using your Chokhmah, which is a father, and your Binah, which is a mother, that will produce children. The children of the emotions. The main emotions we're always going to talk about, there's always two categories of emotions. Who knows what those two main categories? And every other emotion fits into these two. Love and fear. Every other emotion is just an offshoot of those two emotions. Love is the feeling of drawing close. And the more love, the more passion, the more you just want to essentially dissolve. When people are really in love, there's a feeling of just dissolving into each other. You're moving so close, you don't know where one ends and the other one begins. That's love. And the emotion of fear is recoiling, is drawing away. When there's fear, there's I better run. And by the way, you do that every single moment that you make any decision. You're about to cross the street. You make an intellectual decision, there's no car coming, there's this. It's safe. The velocity that the car is coming, did he see me, did he not see me? And you decide, I can go forward. There's an emotion there. You don't call that love, you just call that forwardness. But that is really what love is in its essence, is moving forward. Fear would be recoiling. Now you could be in the middle of walking across the street and then some crazy guy in his Ferrari zips down and fear grips you. You don't want to go forward, you want to recoil back. So the two emotions that all the other emotions fit into is either I'm going close or I'm moving far away. I'm going away. Now, is one better than the other? Both are needed. Both are needed. There's certain times where the emotion of fear or recoiling is needed. Let's say a person's in love, and then God forbid somebody tries to seduce that person. So the fear of losing the relationship, of being unfaithful, would cause him to recoil from this approaching seductive person. There'd be an immediate fear of, I don't want to lose that. I have to recoil and run away. The fear of a person doing something that would not be pleasant to that person causes them, if he knows that everyone has their own things. Dirty socks. Let's say somebody in the relationship, the guy's roommate, that's like his peeve. You just, bro, your socks are stinky. They're just, come on. I don't want those dirty socks. So out of fear of, I don't want to hurt him, I see let me pull them away. I recoil and I take my socks away. Now, it also could be from love, is I want to be close to you, so generally that would be I do something for you that you do love. Now, once we're talking about that intellect is going to generate emotions, he's going to give us 3 topics of intellect about God that if we can do this, my friends, this is going to be a lifetime of work. You will blow your mind and your emotions will go nuts. And you will carry this into the world to come for all eternity. Are you ready for the 3 ideas? We're not going to develop the 3 ideas now, we're just going to mention them now. Says the Rebbe. Ki ha-seichel shebenefesh ha-maskelis, the seichel, your mind, in the nefesh ha-maskelis is referring to your soul. Kishemisboinen bina. You have to bina the following ideas. Not enough that you just get it, you have to develop these 3 ideas in depth. Umamik me'oid, and you go deeply, a lot, bigdulas Hashem, in the greatness of God, in the following 3 ways. You should make numbers in your Tanyas. 1. Echu memale kol almen. Comma. When you actually think about the fact that God's light fills every part of the world, mamale kol almen, that God's light fills this table, fills this pen, fills your brains, fills the air that you're breathing, fills, if anyone saw that giant Hubble telescope picture from NASA, of all the galaxies and all the worlds and how we're like a nothing, but it all revolves around what's going on here and learning the Torah. Hashem's light fills these worlds. We're not talking about something physical. What we mean is that God's light is in every part of creation. Now, if you really think about that, that means, is God far at any moment? Can you ever be far from God? He's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. Once you realize that, it's the Yom Kippur. You can get to that place of Ein Oid Milvado. And you really get it on Purim. The Yom Kippur is just Yom Kippurim. It's just getting us ready for Purim. And so on Purim, you realize everything is God. That's how you do Malacha. Everything is God. Ein Oid Milvado. Once you can get to that place, that there's nothing but you, God. There's nothing but you. That consciousness, that creates a feeling of goodness. Both, I want to be close to you. I'm running to you. You're right here. I want to know you more and more. And everything is you. And you're making this world something from nothing every second. Every second. Which means if God stopped creating the world for 1 second, would anything exist? Which also shows you, is he doing that? No. Which means the fact that he's creating, and he creates through speech, which means that you speak what's on your mind, so to speak. Hashem is creating through interest. He's interested in the world, which means he's creating you every second because he's interested in you. Which means he's thinking about you every second. Once you think about that Hashem, you're creating me every single second, and you're right here, and you're interested in me all the time, and you're imminent. It's here, so close. You're right here. I think it's called panentheism. Yeah, that's the correct technical term. Completely here. is you. You fill creation. Mamala kolamin. You should know. Really, I should spend months just talking about mamala kolamin. I'm going to mention the other two, and we're going to come to it later in the Tanya. But start with mamala kolamin. The second thing is soiviv kolamin. Not only is your light here, but your light is beyond the worlds. Which means there's a part of you that's beyond. There's a revelation of you that's beyond everything. Which means there's a part, an expression of you, God, that's everywhere. And at the same time is beyond. But it's a beyondness that's also here, that you can relate to. But only the lowest level of that. But even these two things, the light of you that arrives and takes destination. When we talk about that God fills the worlds, it's compared to the way that your soul fills your body. It's everywhere. Where's your soul? So it's in your mind, but it's everywhere. It fills every single fiber of your being. But then there's higher parts of your soul that are called beyond you. The keter and the higher parts, they're also here, but they're not in any destination. They're like the highest part of you. So God also has this higher part that's beyond this world. But then the third part is in kulay kamei kolay chashiv. All of that compared to who God is nothing. The light of God that fills all the worlds. And the light of God that's beyond all the worlds. All of that is still just an expression of God's light. Compared to who God is, all that is nothing. Is nothing. These are the three ideas. Every single Kabbalistic meditation focuses on these three. We barely began. If you really start thinking about this, and then ultimately you'll take this to heart, you will become a meshugana for God. You will get emotionally on fire. It takes time. We're going to have to develop it more. And do real meditations where we actually go into these concepts. We should be zocher to mamish meditate on God. Amen. A wonderful day.